Hi guys, Seth here. So I would like to talk a little bit about Diablo 4 and sort of a wish and ideas on how to make Diablo 4 a better game. These are obviously just my perspectives, and there's going to be a lot of things that is going to be very subjective to what I find fun or interesting, which may differ from you. Um, I've got a fair amount of things here, so I'm gonna try and run over it fairly quickly. But some of the things we're gonna try and go over are these things. So we're gonna go over about some itemization, some skill customization, build diversity, crafting, progression system, endgame seasonal content, ladder, competitive, and trading, solo self-found, casual versus die-hard, and obviously the test servers you can see. Now, I've got a bunch of notes here. Now, one of the things I think we should talk about is itemization. What is it that made Diablo 2 great, and what is it that's made other ARPGs great? And I think that is considering that most ARPGs have sprouted from the core of Diablo 2, which is its itemization, which is probably to this day still the best. Now, I don't understand why you have not just taken that core itemization from Diablo 2 and just build upon it. Don't change it. Don't try and fix what isn't broke. Because we have so many cool things. The stats are fairly simple in Diablo 2. There's no sort of guesswork in what you're gonna try and figure out. The next thing is, they had these amazing things like rune words, which is in some weird form was like a little crafting thing to it in and of itself. But the thing that was cool about it was you could, with rune words, get access to some of the other skills from other classes. Like with Enigma, you could teleport, Call to Arms, or Heart of the Oak, and all these things, where you could get Barbarian shouts, or you could get the Druid Wisp to follow you. All these things were really awesome. What do we have from Diablo 2 as well? And Diablo 3 for that matter is we also had set items. Now I'm a little bit like, with set items, it's like there are certain do's and don'ts. So the things that should be there is, well, let's talk about the trap of set items. Set items very often go in and become sort of the developer's way of saying this is how you should play the game. Maybe not the developers, but the game in itself is saying this is what you should do. Because this is solid, and it's often hard to be compared to with other things. So, for me, for set items even to work, you would actually need to go in and then maybe try and make sets that focuses more on the utility skills, like your teleport and that, to make things fun in that regard. Maybe it will do something crazy like you deal absurd amount of damage with your teleports and that, but that is just an addition to your already existing build. Let's try and move on to some skill customization. One of the biggest issues with Diablo 4 is skills. The skill tree in itself sucks. You can't customize your build or your skills in the skill tree. The only way that you can do it, and these are very, very few in between, is through aspects. So you may have this awesome idea for a build, but you can't actually bring the build to work unless you're lucky enough to find a certain legendary aspect for it. Take the meteor from the sorcerers in Diablo 4. The only way to get a meteor shower is if you find the corresponding aspects, or if you want an extra charge, you gotta get it from a unique. You know, these are things that should be in the core mechanics of the skill tree. You know, if we go over and we look at last epoch, for instance, I've just for the fun just put gone on the sorcerer over here and put the various things in, and how this is the skill tree of last epoch. This is the meteor skill, and one of the funny things I thought could be fun is you could go in here Stardust Meteor. This time it actually starts dealing more damage and works better as a non-fire skill, because why shouldn't you be able to do that? And over here you can turn it into a meteor shower. You can get up to, let's see, we have here 1 and 4. You can get up to 5 extra meteors that sort of just starts raining down, and it's so cool. And then depending on what elemental you focus on, it'll just do more stuff. Same thing with Fireball. I've turned that into lightning basically, which will ultimately earn the flamethrower, just because why not run around with some sort of Sith Lord lightning fireball flamethrower thing. This option here is particularly cool as well, that you can, the fireballs are now homing missiles, or you can get more fireballs at the same time. These are all different kind of options that you can do. This one is kind of funny, Frostclaw, because I've sort of set it into that it'll create these glaciers at the same time. It'll create elemental novas, so this skill basically starts to become a massive amount, like a melting pot of skills, and it also starts dealing different kinds of elemental damage, like both fire and lightning instead of just the cold. This one is particularly as well. Let's get a barrage of stuff, or any kind of thing that could just make it kind of fun. And black holes the same. It'll start casting more black holes, which will then work with the meteor to start throwing meteors out as well. And then you got volcanic orb. If you wanted to make that frozen orb build that you love and adore from Diablo 2, then you can turn a volcanic orb into the frozen orb build. These are things that I'm missing in Diablo 4, is the way you can go in and you can change the fundamentals of your ability to suit whatever build you want. I find it kind of sad that if I want to play a bleed build of any kind, I have to play a barbarian. You know, if I want to do anything with poison, well, I have to play a rogue with the imbuements, or a druid. You know, why not be able to make this massive, huge poison sorcerers where your meteors is literally just poison blobs falling, like a acid rain falling from the skies or whatnot. It could just be fun. Or a rogue that is literally terrifying, that stabs you to death and leaving you with so many wounds that you just bleed to death. I don't know, it would just be nice to have the option. Next on is some build diversity, which is again from going through these skills and the way that you can build them. You know, this doesn't just happen for this, for instance. You can play a paladin and have a javelin spear that deals fire damage, so you can do fire damage, but at the same time you can also make it so heavy on dots in general that you can bleed and burn them over time, and it just starts ramping up. It's just cool with the options. And it's just because when you have skill trees like these, I'm not saying do this, by the way, this is not what I mean, I'm just saying bring more options to it, because you don't have to copy Path of Exile or copy Last Epoch, but gosh darn it if you can't allow yourself to be inspired and take something that's really cool and expand on and make it your own. You know, and when you have these skill trees in terms of build diversity, then you end up opening up different kinds of gameplay and more build diversity, because you can have, say, 6 different kind of meteor builds and 6 different kinds of fireballs or anything. If you can have 3 different build ideas that works per skill, you're looking at perhaps a class with about 15 viable builds. And the thing that I love about this is everything is not coming down to an item enabling your build. No, the items enhance your build and makes your build do extraordinary things, because the build in and of itself works on its own without the items, which is great. Will it push really great lengths? Well, I don't know yet. We'll have to wait and see, but at least at its core you will be able to get through the campaign and whatnot regardless of what you do, and you can always respec and alter it, try stuff out. I think that really matters. I would just like to have the options of changing them. So let's move on to crafting. And let's be honest here, Diablo 4's crafting is not crafting. It really isn't. Because it's a glorified slot machine where you go over to the occultist, you put in your coins, you pull the lever, rolling on a stat, hoping that you hit the jackpot. And at the end of the day, it'll most likely just end up leaving you broke, beaten and scarred. Broken essentially, you have used all of your gold on re-rolling the same stat 400 times because it doesn't want to give you the one that you need or at a maximum roll. So here's what we would be really awesome if we had. If we had the abilities to, at the very least, control the stats on an item through the use of materials that you can funnel into your item. For instance, if you're out, you got all of these plants in the game. Why not go out and say some of them are poisonous plants? So if you funnel those into your item, you either bypass poison resistance on the enemy, or you deal more poison damage, or you add poison resistance to yourself. Or bring in some mats like elemental cores that will increase your elemental damage or resistances. Just give us something that we can directly put into the item with some element of control over the item that we're making. And you could maybe even add tiers of it. So for a basic increase, you would add 5 daedrum plants or whatever. And then if you add 10, you'll be able to increase the tier more or something. Doesn't have to be these exact numbers, these are just me throwing out ideas. Because if you could do that in the crafting and be able to craft them in that way, you could make even white items matter, because you could be able to turn it into a valuable item. So say you find a super amazing Ascended Kingslayer's sword, and you have rolled with max on it or whatnot, and it's just like, this is what you've been waiting for, so therefore you're now going to funnel all of these mats into it and try and make it the best for your build as possible. Now, you could even add more stuff into it that could increase the tier of the item, say from common to magic, from magic to rare, or up to legendary, whatnot. I would say Path of Exile and Last Epoch has this amazing system where you have these mats that will randomly roll it, but also in some way you also have something that actually do specifically. Last Epoch, you have these runes of ascendancy where you can turn a any kind of item into a unique item, which is just mind-boggling to me. It's just, it would be really cool to have a way of controlling your items so you're not just skimming through items day in and day out, but give us the way to maybe make the item that would suit our builds. Progression system. Now this one is kind of funny because let's try and just go into docs here. and add a new one. I had the idea because in the progression at the moment, 1 to 50 I think honestly is fine, because seasonal content is catered to that, which we'll get into in a minute. Once you get to a 50, the Paragon unlocks, and that's kind of fun and intuitive for maybe 10 levels. After that, you're kind of grinding it out, and it doesn't really ever change. Sure, your character gets a bit more powerful, but at the end of the day, nothing really changes. So I would say could do with some tweaking and have some more interesting choices around glyph based. Add some passives into the Paragon board that could alter the way that you play, and make those choices have a meaningful impact on your character. One could be that have a passive that makes you immune to poison, for instance, but instead of that, you may take more bleed damage, or so you might need to compensate for the fact that, okay, I don't need to have more any poison resistance or any gear, but I need to stack up on physical because I'm now more vulnerable to that. That could be one way of doing it. But the way it is now, you have unlocked the Paragon board, and it leaves us with no more character progression except for that. So my idea is something I would say called a heritage system. Now this is, I gotta be honest, this is very inspired by, in many ways, by the ascendancy system in Path of Exile, because you could easily take that and make it your own in Diablo 4, because we have this wonderful story with Inarius and Lilith, we have the demon, we have the angel. And now what we're missing is, from all of the advertisements, who do you side with, who do you believe in? Why not put that aspect into it and give us a choice? So let's just say, from my point of view, that at level 65, let's just for fun, you unlock a quest line. So you unlock a quest line there, and throughout that, it could be at level 70 as well, this is just an idea. Then you do the quest line, and then you basically get new powers. Your powers gets unlocked. So and these powers will come from the creators of Sanctuary, say Inarius. That's not how you spell it. Or Lilith. So now that we have these two, then it's just like, okay, now you've got to choose a path. When you get the quest, you have the option to go either down the path of Lilith, where you'll get demonic powers, or something like that, demonic influence on your character. Let's just say that. And obviously, path of Inarius equals angelic, divine, holy powers / influence. Let's say that we do that, yeah? So you do these quests where you'll also be facing new bosses that you have to beat, because you gotta get your power from somewhere. This is a personal quest line, so you've got to face new bosses with good design, with well telegraphed abilities and all this stuff, not like the bullshit with Lilith where you see these tiny lines but the abilities this wide. No, you've got to have some good design on it, and obviously it's going to be catered around the theme that the path you've chosen. So you might be able to, maybe you'll have a standoff with Imperius or whatnot, and maybe you'll have a standoff with another archdemon, something. Maybe one you've encountered in the campaign. Oh, like I said, these are just very surface level ideas. Let me know in the comments what you think of this when we get there. But then, what I was thinking here is, you then get into, you choose which ones you want to do. So you go down the path, you get your new like heritage, your heritage of your father or your mother, and now what we would like is that maybe it adds a new passive tree or even a new skill tree. A skill tree if you get really cool abilities. Now these could differ from different classes, I don't know. But either one of these two, where these new skills could actually change the way you would play the game. Say if you are going down the line of Lilith and the demonic things, now you'll be able to add maybe a bunch of fire damage or whatnot and bleeds to your already existing abilities. Maybe you'll have your existing ability like your fireball or your meteor as before, and now we actually turns these into like the Hellfire Torch, and now you're just basically you burst with unholy energies and become this Hellfire Torch yourself and start raining meteors around you as you move. It could be something like that, something crazy, at least something that would give us more power on our character and give us an idea that we're progressing into something more. For in areas it could be the opposite, you start adding holy damage to your things, maybe you get holy nova or say that you'll be able to get holy shields, maybe you'll get healing, you'll actually start healing your character. It could be anything, it could be chains of oblivion, maybe you'll create sanctuaries around you where mobs can't for a limited time enter your personal sphere. Anything, I just think it could be cool to have something like that in the game where you make a choice, you go down a line where you can choose whether or not you want to harness your demonic ancestry or your divine. Anyway, let's move on to the end game, or the lack thereof. So the way it currently is, it's really just hell tides to farm materials for Grigor, which leads to one half of the materials for Duriel, and then you go and do Whispers, World Bosses, maybe Legion events for Vashan maps, to which then you'd go and do Vashan, and then you get the other half of Duriel maps. And it's just, then you also obviously have Nightmare Dungeons, which is not really an end game, is just another leveling method if you really think about it. And obviously you have the Echo of Lilith, which sucks. It doesn't reward you anything. You can pat yourself on the shoulder. You can't even do that if you just found a one-shot build where you go in and you just twatter and then that's over. So, yeah, top tier gameplay. Go in and one-shot the hardest boss in the game because it's the only way you can beat her. Anyway, world bosses are cool to have. I like the idea of the world bosses. I think we need, first of all, we need more of them. We need to beef them up like nothing else matters. Because I think the world bosses are great in World Tier 1 and World Tier 2 when you're leveling, because they provide a decent challenge and they don't die in 2.5 seconds. So yeah, it would be cool if these world bosses were taking a little bit longer to do, say 2 to 5 minutes, where you have the risk of dying to mechanics or whatnot, where you can actually get a chance to learn the fight. I was talking to a friend of mine who started playing this season 3, poor lad. I did not try and persuade him into this season, and I wouldn't try and persuade anyone into this season. Anyway, and he said, like, what are the world bosses? A joke? he didn't learn anything, and it's just a poor example of what they could have been. Uh, yeah, and then we have the regular bosses that you see in Nightmare Dungeons, which I don't even want to call bosses because they are exactly the same mobs that you go out and you fight with maybe two exceptions. But other than that, you go out and you fight, and I can't really tell the difference between a Nightmare Dungeon boss and a regular mob or elite from the dungeon. They're just fat versions of them, which is a shame. Sure, you got the capstone dungeons with the Elias and the Tomb Lord. That's cool. At least they have some mechanics and a little bit more interesting. But again, if you've got a good build, you'll just one-shot it, so it doesn't really matter. But I'm just thinking, we have these bosses from the campaign, and you could easily take. I mean, look at this. We got Andariel, we got Astaroth, Elias, and Lilith. What about the Amalgam of Rage? That would be really, really cool to have that one as an actual fight. Bring Andariel back. You could easily turn these into uber bosses, and didn't make him, or just like milestone bosses, like little challenges that you can go in and sort of test, like where am I at, and then say, if I can beat Andariel, Maiden of Anguish, then I am ready to do Nightmare Dungeon level 50 or something. And when it comes to the actual uber bosses, I don't think, either get rid of the bloody materials to summon them, or give us several ways, like every time you complete a Nightmare Dungeon at level 85 up, you get any material, or one of each material that you need to go and do an uber boss. I still don't understand why you need 4 for Bashan. 4 different ones with that is completely random. That mind boggles me. Just make it one item if you really gotta have it. So that's something I would completely change. And speaking of Nightmare Dungeons, it would be so awesome to have a way to control the affixes of a Nightmare Dungeon, to be able to juice Nightmare Dungeons like you would do maps in Path of Exile. You go in and you'll have all of these various things that you can go in and say, like, okay, maybe I can ban this shitty Stormbane's Wrath or whatever, or Suppression. Maybe I can delete that affix and then I can juice up the other affixes. Maybe you could be able to craft the sigil and then actually add a crafting recipe where you can funnel materials into it, and then you can end up maybe give the dungeon the Duriel boss, which has a chance with the Uber Unique, or any of the other bosses, to add something. Maybe you can even mega juice your Nightmare Dungeon so you have both Lilith, Elias, Duriel, and Andariel, Astaroth, all in the same area. So make it go crazy. Give us the options. Give us a way to control these affixes and to make the Nightmare Dungeons be the way we want. You could even add it so you could add previous seasons content. Like if you really like vaults this season, give us the chance to craft it into the sigils outside of the season. Don't just throw it away, unless obviously if everyone says it's shit and no one likes it, obviously get rid of it, try again. I'd rather have that you swing and miss than not swing at all. Then we have Hell Tides, which just needs to feel like hell. I want the zone to be completely overrun by demons. I want the strongholds to be something you can go in and recapture doing Hell Tides. Add a really cool looking boss in there. There's not just a slightly different version of an already existing mob in there that you've just made slightly bigger and given 3 punches. Give us something. You could do so many cool things there. You could add a new world tier. I'm not that big on the idea. I would rather have a new zone. And I don't know, why not make Hell an actual zone? We saw a little glimpse of Hell in the campaign and I thought it was absolutely awesome. So I would love that to be a new high level zone that you go to. If you're not level 100 and with a solid build, you're going to get absolutely demolished. I want it to be a place that completely obliterates your ass, because if you're not careful or thinking of how you play, you know, and then make that place a reliable place to go to get your uber unique items or mats to go and make go and farm your unique bosses, uber bosses even. You know, I think it could be really fun to have an area like there that you're a little bit terrified of going into, and it makes you think and approach the game in a different way that isn't just like go in there blindfolded and just mash random buttons. Yeah, so in that way we get more, what's it called? You get more ways of earning these materials for the Uber uniques, or more ways of earning Uber uniques. I've always said that if you want to do really well, you should just make Duriel. You should have 5 different ways of grinding materials for Duriel, because right now we have 2, and those 2 are mandatory if you want to do it. I'd rather have 3 to 4 more ways I can do it, so I don't have to sit and do the exact same things. Helltide's fine. I hate doing the whispers all the time because the reward is rubbish, because you may get 11 hearts and none of the other, or vice versa. So that kind of sucks. Let's talk a little bit about the seasonal content. Seasonal content is kind of cool for leveling, because all the stuff there, you do the quest line, you get an introduction to the season, get to level 50, and then you go back and you do the same thing. You could say you do the same thing kinda as well once you've sort of hit level 25. You go in and you do dopamine tunnels, or you can do whispers, but everyone goes into dopamine tunnels if they want to race. I think you should really make the whispers the greatest source of XP, or at least on par with dopamine tunnels, and bring other dungeons on par with dopamine tunnels. And when it comes to seasonal themes, you know, it's always going to be personal preference. Either you like the theme or you don't. If you hate traps, you're going to hate this season. If you love traps, this season's great. You know, I will give them props there that at least they made a swing. Unfortunately, didn't hit the mark, but again, like I said, rather that you swing and miss than not swing at all. Next one could be great. We'll have to wait and see. I would, however, also be adding the seasonal content as a minor mechanic into the full version of the game. So you have these vaults, make it a thing that they will spawn randomly through portals in certain areas as you run around, or whatnots. That could be really cool. I'm sort of just running things over because I know I'm already dragging on. So we got the ladder competitive aspect. Now this is a personal opinion, because I don't really care too much about the competitive side, but if I did, I think it should be restricted to solo self-found. It may be a hot take, but I think it's the way to make things most fair, because there's going to be those of us who has communities behind us that can go in and just help us funnel 1 million Duriel runs into us, and then we go in and do it, and we'll, you know, and then we'll be the top of the leaderboards, and no one can really compete, because you'll have people that are basically just the collection of 600 people and not just one person. So, but you know, why not have both, is what I would say. So if you want to test, if you want a leaderboard where skill and execution matters the most, I think it should be in the solo self-found. That's basically what there is to say about that. Let me know what you think in the comments about it. Then we got trading. I am all for open trade. There is one huge drawback to open trade, obviously, and that is once you have open trade, the game becomes pay to win. That's the way it is, which is another reason to why you need solo self-found. because when you have open trade, you'll have third-party websites that's going to sell you items and whatnot all the time. It's just the way it's going to be, and it always has been. Diablo 2 is pay to win. Path of Exile is pay to win. You know, you can buy your way to the most insane things ever. Don't know if Last Epoch's going to be the same. We'll have to wait and see when it comes out here in a week's time. Solo self-found, self-explanatory. I think it needs to absolutely have the option. Then we have the casual versus diehards. Now, this is where I would say I completely understand that you make a game that is catered for a casual audience. I have no problem with it. All I'm saying is don't neglect the die-hard fans of your game either, because there's always going to be some. There's some that's going to maybe start casual and they're going to really sort of sink into the game and then become more die-hard over time. So you should always have something for those. You know, I would love to see a small section of the game. I'm talking about 5% of the game that, say, Wudijo goes in and gets absolutely wrecked in. I would like to see that man sweat because something is a challenge for him. You know, server stability is his own challenge, but it's not really a challenge. But yeah, it would be really cool. And last but not least, just give us a fucking test server. Why don't you? That is really all I can say about that, is just give us that test server and test your shit properly. There is nothing more to it, and there won't be anything more. Anyways, that is it for me, and if you like this video, please give it a like, comment and subscribe. Let me know what you think of it, and if you want to see more of this, let me know. Anyways, this has been Seth, good to see you, and I'll see you again in the next video. Bye now.